All right, y'all, so I've been hearing the ROG Ally X is this small spec bump, but I think it does something really important that's gonna shake up everything. Now, for me personally, I've been rocking that white ROG Ally since its launch, and for those ROG Ally owners, is the X something that's worth upgrading to? Let's check out the actual differences. Right off the bat, the biggest change is of course the fact that this thing is all black. I'm kind of sad about that. I like the all white. I thought this gave it a distinct look, very different. With the all black, it kind of falls in line with all of the other handhelds. I mean, you probably have a hard time telling the difference between this and the MSI Claw, but for the most part, it looks the same. This one is a bit thicker because it has a bigger battery, but it also has a few other changes with the ports. All right, so I'm gonna pop off this case that I have over here, and when you check out the very top, you can see that they did change up a few things. You still got that power button that's all the way on the right with the fingerprint scanner, but they moved over the headphone jack and the micro SD card, so hopefully we shouldn't have any more issues with burning SD cards. Now with the X, you do have two USB-C ports. One is a Thunderbolt 4 port, which is awesome, but this makes me a little bit sad, I'm not gonna lie. Now don't get me wrong, 2 ports is great because you can now have accessories attached to your X while it's charging, and so you can have both at the same time. But I was one of the fools who purchased ASUS's special external GPU so that I can turn this thing into a full-blown computer when you attach a monitor, or if I just wanted better performance from the Ally itself. And man, I feel burnt. I feel burnt because now they got rid of the port, so I can't use that with the Ally X. Hopefully ASUS comes out with an adapter that works with the Thunderbolt port. I mean, I feel like it could make sense, right? It's a Thunderbolt port, so it should be able to handle all the bandwidth and all that, but who knows? ASUS, if you're listening, work on it, please. Those GPUs were expensive. So I am a little sad that some of the accessories that I purchased won't be working with the X. Even the case that I have on my Ally won't work with the X because the overall body is a bit thicker, and they changed some of the ergonomics of the overall device. Now, I will say, I really like the feel of the Ally X. They made the back a bit more curved, it's less flat than the Ally is, which is a very welcome change. So now it's easier to have all of your fingers just kind of resting on the sides versus automatically resting on those pro buttons or macro buttons in the back of the Ally. So playing is comfortable, the buttons feel good, they're slightly different. And for the D-pad, I like that the cross is a bit more prominent. With the Ally, it was a bit more flat, kind of reminds me of the Xbox Elite controllers. Now, I don't know what it is with my luck with the face buttons, but with my Ally, my buttons were sticking, it was a little bit weird. I just had a really bad beginning experience with my Ally and the face buttons. And I had something similar with the X. I've heard others talk about their experience with the face buttons on the X being more clicky and responsive. But me, my A button, man, this thing was sticking quite a bit, and it's still kind of doing that. So it's like it's getting stuck, and then it slowly raises up. Yeah, I can repeat it over and over. You guys can hear that delayed click. I don't know what it is. I've got really bad luck when it comes to these face buttons. If you purchase this and your buttons seem to be sticking, return it, you get a new one, make sure the buttons feel good. So the buttons are supposed to feel better. The joystick's also supposed to have a longer lifespan, I think more than twice the lifespan in terms of spinning them versus the Ally, as well as the triggers being Hall effect buttons. So better durability overall. I just can't give them all the marks because that button's killing me. Now those pro buttons, macro buttons, whatever you want to call them, you'll notice that they're a lot smaller on the X. It's like ASUS decided to just go ahead and carve this whole part off. So if you've gotten used to resting your finger on here, it's gonna be a little bit of a different experience on this one, but it still feels really comfortable. And these are still very easy to press, super clicky. Not mad about this at all. Also, peep the vents in the back. You see how much bigger those are? That helps to keep it cooler and of course, get you better performance. And we're looking at the same 7-inch 1080p LCD display with a 120 Hz refresh rate with a peak brightness of 500 nits. Now, I really like this display. Games look good, colors pop on this quite a bit. Now, these are both rocking AMD's Z1 Extreme processor, so You'd expect things to largely be the same, but you do get better performance with the Ally X. Now it's the same chip, so don't expect like a huge jump in numbers, but depending on the game, you're getting about 10 to 15% better performance. And what's nice here is that while you're getting that better performance while you're gaming and you're doing your thing, you got better battery life. So not only is the thing performing better, slightly, but you're also able to game far longer. It's like double the battery life. And obviously there's a ton of variables, but I personally like to game on turbo and typically where you get that hour and a half to 2 hours of gameplay. With this, you're looking at 3 to 4 hours. And I think that is going to be the big thing that pretty much shakes up the handheld market right now. Battery life is the worst part of all of these handhelds, and it's just kind of the name of the game, right? Like, you've got Windows. Gaming on a handheld device that small, you can't expect the battery to last you forever. But I think this is going to set a new standard for the way manufacturers handle battery life. Because you know how many people are like, I'd rather a slower phone as long as it lasts me all day? Like, battery life is easily the most important part to a lot of people out there. And I think that's going to be the same for the handheld market. Because this thing is all about portability, right? You want to game on the go. You don't want to have your handheld sitting next to a wall outlet, because if you got to stay stationary, you might as well play a console. And so this thing has an 80 watt-hour battery, which makes sense why it's, a little bit on the thicker side in comparison to the Ally. Not enough to be a big deal. It's only 11% heavier, and honestly, I would have never noticed if I didn't know the numbers. But I think people are gonna want this kind of battery life for their handheld, and if Lenovo wants the Legion Go 2 to, do its thing, they're gonna need those battery numbers to match that. Now, I haven't been needing to charge the Ally X as much as I need to charge the Ally, obviously. But one thing that is nice is if you have a fast enough charging brick, it supports up to 100 watts of charging, which actually charges the battery really quickly. It's like a win-win for the battery situation here. It kind of reminds me of the iPhone 13. Everyone loved that battery life. It was getting so much praise. And then they changed it, I don't know. Anyway, it's not just the battery life. You're getting other spec bumps as well. Like, it still has that Z1 Extreme, but it has more RAM. 24 gigs of RAM instead of the 16, and it's better RAM, they're faster sticks, but you also get more storage. So instead of 512 gigs of storage, you can get up to 1 terabyte now. And one change I wasn't really expecting was better speakers. These have cleaner audio. If you're like listening to music, the vocals come in more clearly. There's a lot less muddiness in the overall sound. Not that I ever thought the Ally was muddy or the speakers were muddy, but the Ally X, definitely cleaner audio and it's a fuller sound. You can actually feel the vibrations from the speakers quite a bit more on the X than you do with the Ally. So overall, you are getting a better package. It's $800, which is $150 more than the Ally, but those are all good enough to me to, warrant that extra $150. And I'm gonna put it simply, if you already own the Ally, don't upgrade. If you own any of the other handheld PCs like the Legion Go, maybe even like a Steam Deck OLED, I wouldn't go for the Ally X unless you really want to switch it up with your Steam Deck. But I would wait for the Ally 2. Now, if you're a new customer, you want to get into the market, if you got the money to spring for the Ally X, I say go for it. That battery life is going to treat you right. Overall, everything else that it can do, I think you're going to be happy with. You can still buy the original if you like. They're still selling them side by side. But me personally, I want to make sure I get the most out of my handheld, and the battery life to me is everything. But there you have it, you guys. Those are my thoughts. Till next one, guys. Peace.